Amazing. Thank you so much, Anna. So super happy to be here and joining you all this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining from. My name is Jennifer MacFarlane. I'm a senior engineer on the Passage team, and I'll be your moderator today. My colleague Vanessa Burroughs is going to be taking you through the passwordless authentication in seconds with Passage workshop this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're joining from. We'll be having a Q&A at the end of this presentation, so please drop your questions in the chat, and we will be getting to those at the end of the presentation. If we run out of time with Q&A, we will be recording these questions, so Vanessa will be answering those at a later date in Slack. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Vanessa Burroughs, another senior engineer on the Passage team. Take it away, Vanessa.
Hi, thanks, Jen. So like Jen said, my name is Vanessa Burroughs. I am a senior software engineer on the Passage team at 1Password. And I'm going to go through passwordless authentication in seconds with Passage. Let's get these slides going. Cool. A little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is recorded. You can submit all your questions using the chat through the presentation. Jen will be on there. She might answer some if they're kind of easy to pick off. If not, we will answer at the end. And any remaining, I'll be on Slack. And also, we'll make these slides available. There are a couple links and different things like that, resources that I point out. So you will have the slides available to click through and kind of play around with some things that I showcase in demo. So you met us. A bit about the agenda. I'm going to talk through the state of authentication, passkeys. What are they? Why do they matter? We've been hearing about them. Hopefully, you've been hearing about them all over the place recently. What Passage by 1Password is, and then I am going to talk a little bit more about our hackathon challenge that we're sponsoring, and then give a few examples of previous hackathon projects that have used Passage in the past. I want to start, I kind of want to poll the room. So drop your answer 1, 2, or 3 in the chat. What are your authentication habits? So 1, I use the same password for everything, cat123 across all hundreds of websites that you're on. 2, I use different passwords and I keep them all written down somewhere. And then 3, I use a password manager similar to 1Password. And while I'm waiting for these to come in, I will tell a funny story of why I put 2 on. This weekend, I found out I've been pushing my mom to get onto 1Password. This weekend, I found out she has half of her new ones on 1Password. Half of her old passwords are written down and laminated on a piece of paper in her purse. And she lost that piece of paper this weekend, and she freaked out. So we're getting there with her. We're getting there. All right, I'm seeing 2s, mainly 3s. Okay, that's pretty awesome. All right, okay. So most of us are in password managers. I'll admit it took me a bit of time to kind of get into password manager as well. But I've been in one for probably about 3 years now. I've been using 1Password even prior to working there. Hard to imagine going back now. So if you are not in a password manager, your life will be a million times easier. I would have told you that even prior to working at 1Password. So let's talk a little bit about the journey of auth and where we are now. So we started, on the internet, we got into passwords, and it was username, email address, and remember a password. And it got more and more difficult as more and more of our life moved on to the internet. So then all of a sudden it's, I'm not just having these simple websites that I'm signing in for. I have everything on here, right? All of my banking, all of my taxes, my mortgage, anything I need to do to function realistically is on the internet now. And according to Security Magazine, we have a hacker attack every 39 seconds. So even from starting this slide, there has been some type of hacker attack that has happened. So it's so easy to have these passwords be lost, be forgotten, or hacked. So then we kind of started thinking to ourselves, okay, how can we make this harder, right? We're saying, oh, let's make passwords so it's harder to have them hacked. We'll increase the length, we'll throw in characters, we will do all these other things. And so we said, okay, wait, let's add another step in. Let's add multi-factor authentication. So we're kind of getting used to these. Most banks, at least here in the US, are requiring multi-factor authentication. So a text message code that comes to you, or an email that comes to you, some additional step where you have to use a device, or you have to get information from somewhere else and then put it in. And it's awesome, it's great, it's more secure, but then at the same time, it's just that initial step, right? There's so many times I go to sign in from somewhere, my phone is in another room, and then I'm running over here to get my code. Oh, okay, I had to find my phone, 30 seconds has passed, can you send me a new code? And it's a whole thing. And so that kind of brings us to step 3 of where the industry is kind of turning to now, and that's with passkeys. And so passkeys actually removes passwords. It's passwordless authentication. So it gives you the ability to use your fingerprint or biometrics, scanning of your face, things like that. And it has that built-in multi-factor authentication already available. So that's kind of where we've started and where we're at now. And then I've thrown 3 kind of links in here just to point you, kind of pro tip, to some different features that 1Password does have that will account for each of these things. Because while we are an industry that is morphing, all of this is still in play, right? Where we are as an industry does still depend on what the website or application is using. So it's really great, like, if I want to use multi-factor for everything because I know it's secure, I want to use passkeys for everything, I'm still limited by what the website or the application is using. So I did drop these in. Feel free to check these out when I share the slides of the different 1Password tools that are available that kind of answer and help you out with each of these solutions beyond just the simple saving of passwords. Okay, so another poll. I do want to know, drop in the chat again, 1 through 4. What is your knowledge of passkeys? 1, never heard of it. 2, I've heard of passkeys, but I haven't quite used them yet. 3, I use it, here and there, like yes, once or twice. 4, I use passkeys whenever possible. I'm super excited. I'm on top of things. I've been reading about it. 1 through 4, tell me where you're at. Okay, I see some like 3s. Okay, all right. You guys are ahead of this more than I would have expected, because I have to be honest, but prior to even starting this role, I was like, okay, I've kind of heard about it and some of my blogs and my emails that drop in, but I never know what's temporary hype and what's actually worth being excited about. 3s, okay, cool. So we're starting to use them here and there, it seems. Never heard of, totally fine. Okay, so what are passkeys then? I'll give a simple kind of definition of what passkeys are. They are a direct replacement for passwords. And like I said, instead of relying on people, like, you don't have to remember a password at all anymore. It is a automatically generated cryptographic key pair that's stored on your device. So there is no knowledge, and it is not stored on an actual server somewhere of some company and then encrypted. That's what really prevents that hacking piece. And then, like I said, multi-factor authentication is built in because you are actually having the device and then you have to use something of yours like your fingerprint or your face. There already is the 2 steps of authentication built in there. But let's actually look at how this works, because I think personally I had a problem of, and it was like passwordless authentication and passkeys. And I'm like, that's great, but that seems, I don't know, far-fetched. It was hard to imagine what that would be like. So this is the passage by 1Password demo page. And like I said, all of these links are on here. So feel free to play around with this, especially if you've never used passkeys before. You can go play around and kind of see how this works. So this is our passage demo page. So I'll walk through kind of showing what the registration and login looks like when you're looking at passkeys as a whole. Okay, so I'll register vanessa@em.com. Let me keep this so we can use it to log in later, and I can hit continue. So we're given an option here to say register with passkeys or use another device. So I'm going to go through register with passkeys, but I am going to show use another device afterwards. So I could say register with me with passkeys. And of course, I use 1Password everywhere. So this is the 1Password browser to allow you to actually save the passkey within 1Password. But I'm going to show you more of the traditional route without a password manager. So, okay, so I clicked the register with passkeys, and this is where I get. And so this is actually, I'm in Chrome, so this is my Chrome experience of actually seeing this pop up here. And I do want to make the distinction of this would be the passage experience of going and clicking through register with a passkey using another device. But when this pops up, this is actually a Chrome experience. So this experience changes depending on what device or browser you're on. But then I get to say, yes, create me a passkey for passage at 1Password. And I hit continue, and then I'm prompted via Mac, because it is going to use my biometric feature within my Mac, to go ahead and I can say use password and type in my password for my account on my Mac, or I use my biometric, so fingerprint on, and I've logged in. So that's kind of one flow. Sorry, let me get out of here. That's kind of one flow. If I say switch an account, let's register again. Oops. And now let's say I use another device. And I'm going to choose this option again. The big thing here, and the biggest question, and maybe the biggest thing that I didn't understand for passkeys, and was like, okay, well, that's all well and good. So every time I want to use my Mac, that's fine. I log in with passkeys. I get that. I put my fingerprint in. But what about then when I go to log in on my phone? Or I'm on a public computer, or I want to do, any number of things that we do with passwords, right? What we actually get the ability to say is you can create the passkey on your phone or tablet and then hook it up to your device and then be able to log in. So with this QR code, I would grab my phone, I would scan the QR code, and I would actually authenticate. So I will show this. I can scan my QR code. I will go through, I will allow once again. I hit continue, use my fingerprint that I have hooked up on my phone, and then I'm logged in. And so every time after this, where I go to log in, I'm ban at gm.com. This comes through, it says log in with passkeys, use a different device, and I can say, go ahead and use my Samsung that I had already set this up with. I'll get a notification to my Samsung that then I say, yes, go ahead, allow this person to log in here. This is the actual account. And I have to say, okay, and I have to okay it through there. So that's a bit about showing how passkeys are working. And remember, the experience is going to be a little different from browser to browser and device to device. And that truly is also what makes passkeys so difficult as well, because within the industry standards, it is different from device to device, browser to browser. I am going to change my screen share again. So we're just seeing slides. There we go. Cool. So a bit about this, I've been talking about, how it really depends on how the industry is moving altogether. So I will mention this. I don't want to dive too deep into the technical aspects behind passkeys because, one, to be honest, they're difficult. I've been working with the Passage team since June, and even myself, there are times when I'm like, y'all, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I don't want to dive too deep, and I also want to respect the wide range of different technical abilities that we have in this workshop here today too. But there is something important to know called the FIDO Alliance. So a lot of the industry standards, ourselves, 1Password, Google, Microsoft, Apple, are coming together to really build out the standards for passkeys and to talk about what this looks like. Because what's really interesting is where every website can do passwords on their own, to really make passkeys work, we all have to have somewhat of a shared understanding, right? Google's got to set the path for their browsers and Android, and then the Windows has to set it for their actual applications as well, and their phones, and then the same thing for Apple. So if we're not all on the same page, this will not work. So it's really interesting. If this interests you, I would say follow along with the FIDO Alliance, kind of look to see what new standards they're setting, follow along, what guidelines they're putting into place. And then also a lot of these industry leading tech companies, they're constantly putting things out. The biggest one recently was from Google, where they were saying, we really are recommending that everyone go through and use passkeys to log into their Gmail or Google accounts as a whole. So definitely, if it interests you, go check it out, go look to see what's coming down, and then you kind of have an idea of everything that will start to trickle down from all these other websites coming from some of these main companies working with the Alliance. Another really cool place to check out is the passkeys directory. So this is powered and maintained by 1Password. We're trying to keep a running list of companies that are supporting passkeys now. And then we also give you the ability to vote for passkey support. We're hoping to start doing the nudge to other companies as well, saying, I think the largest one on there right now is Steam. Thousands of people have come and they're like upvoting, please Steam, like give us passkeys. So go on there, upvote, add ones, and then see what websites you're using that are already supporting passkeys. It is known that because we all have to work together, we have to also be the ones, if we are leading the standard for passkeys, to let people know it's like, hey, you should start using this. And this is a more secure thing that your users want to actually use as a way to authenticate into your platforms. So that's a little bit about, okay, what this thing is, but then there's the how, right? I've kind of stressed that it's difficult. There's a lot that you have to know. There's a lot that you have to know about your devices, about browsers, about just everything and how this works. And that's where Passage comes in. So Passage by 1Password is a standalone passwordless authentication service. So I showed this in the demo. You got to see what we were actually putting the email address into, hitting, use another device or log in or register. At the bottom, there was a powered by 1Password. That is Passage. Like that is our most basic of Passage tools. It's allowing you to just quickly, with a couple lines of code, be able to drop that into any mobile or web application in order to give your users a very, very easy and secure authentication system. So, another poll for you. I'm checking to see who's still awake. Have you heard of Passage by 1Password? Drop in the chat. Yes, I have. No, or sorry, number 1 is no, not before this hackathon. 2, yes, I have. And I will admit too, before I started working for the company, I had not heard of them before working for 1Password. Okay, ones, kind of as expected. A little bit about the company. It was started by Anna and Cole, super awesome. They got acquired by 1Password last year, and Password was really interested in them because knowing that the future of passwords is going to actually be not having passwords, which is really weird for a company. 1Password is like promoting passwordless things, but they do have solutions to support passkeys as well, as you saw. But they saw them and really knew that if we were going to be leading the industry in all things auth, then we really need the ability to give people to easily implement now this more difficult authentication into their systems. So what does Passage offer? At a high level, I'll kind of just go through and call out some of the big things that might be helpful on this hackathon. No, though, please go play around while you're in there. All accounts that you do within our console, they are free. So you don't have to worry about like, I don't want to play around with these things. Please go play around. So you do get a dashboard with a decent amount of metrics. And then for all of you implementing this and taking on the Passage challenge, you'll go to these app settings and then you'll get all the necessary information for you actually connecting them. But you can see how are your users logging in, what are they doing. We support passkeys, magic links, and one-time codes. So you can look to see monthly active users, what their activity was. You get user management, so you have the ability to see, of course, these will actually have their email addresses. I stole these from the designer. So you'll see all your users. You'll have the ability to quickly deactivate and then even reactivate for them, get an idea of some of their activity when they last signed in. And then probably the coolest thing that I would think that a lot of you will use for your projects, that if you use Passage, is the ability to customize your elements, and I'll dig into that in a few. Customize the actual Passage elements that you're using. So you go through, and there are further options down below, but you don't have to use CSS. I know we've all seen the meme where like CSS is just driving people crazy. It's the longest running joke, but you can go through, not use CSS in your code, and instead kind of use it in here to set and make this match the brand and match the feel of the rest of your page. our hope is that you're dropping it in, but it still feels seamless to whatever experience you want to provide. And then I will call out Jen because this was her work that she kicked off recently, and it was really exciting. So call out to Jen. And then what resources are available for development? We do have a range of SDKs. For web, we have Go, Node, Python, and Ruby. And then over mobile, Android, iOS, Flutter, and React Native. There are a couple that are beyond these that are community run and led. So if you run into any of those that are not on this list, they are just run by the community. So be sure to do your due diligence and read. We do have an awesome Passage community, but these are the ones just that the team at Passage actively maintains. So digging a little further, I mentioned Passage elements. So what Passage elements are is we are really giving you the ability to take this and embed it directly into your code. So you have the ability to use registration, login, and then a profile. So for users to actually see their profile. And you can edit these fields for whatever information that you want to take in. So I can say I want email address, first name, I want location. I can put all of that in this authentication form as well, and then be able to see that on my user management side within the dashboard that I pointed out. And then of course, complete UI UX. This is what it looks like straight out the box. And then of course, like I showed, you have the ability to change that with the element customization within the dashboard or directly with CSS as well. So when we say 2 lines of code, what we mean is this is the script, this is the CDN that you can include, and then Passage Auth is going to give you that simple register or login form. You paste that app ID that I pointed out earlier on the dashboard, and that is it. You can use this on any modern front-end framework. I'll show you the NPMs that this comes from as well. And it's you drop it, you keep going. We do also have hosted login, but for your sake, probably for the hackathon, this would be your fastest, easiest way to get going. So then you can just like build out your greater social good thing and use the fastest auth possible. These are some of the NPMs we have. We do have a React specific package. That's Passage React. We have Passage Elements. That is going to give you all the elements I talked about: auth, login, registration, profile. Passage.js is the base of Passage React, and that's going to be for any front-end framework. We have that Node SDK and NPM, and then a utility library to help UX decisions around web authn. I would be surprised if anybody uses that for their hackathon, but of course, all those extra points, the more Passage things you dig into. So I do want to showcase some previous Passage hackathon projects. And earlier this year, I think right before I started with 1Password, they hosted a hackathon, all of 1Password as a whole. And so there was a Passage prize in there as well. So I'm going to show you 2 different ones. The first is Post-it, and they used a Next.js app. So if that's what you want to work in, go check it out, see how they used it. And then they did milestones and memories, just a simple application. And then the next one was FitGo. It was an Android app. It was a fitness tracker. So really, really cool. Like I said, I will share these slides so you can click through. Both of these folks who submitted these, and I think they won prizes as well. You can go ahead, and they even did a full blog post write-up of how their app works and how they incorporated these things. So it's pretty awesome. Go check it out to get some other ideas of how you can use these in your projects if you still feel kind of stumped. And then prizes. So I do want to cover this because I am always excited to be the person to give something away. So we're doing prizes, having my Oprah moment of best implementation of Passage. You will get $1,750. And this is anything, right? So you can go super simple and implement Passage and, grab a few things from an SDK, extra points for different things you use at different difficulty levels. And then the $250 one, and I understand that this is smaller, but this is for an individual. I'll reiterate, the $1,750 is for the team. So the most valuable feedback, I personally work on developer experience with our Passage team. So I will be reading all of these, and I mean every single word that you give me, I will read them. So I'm really just looking for feedback that I felt like you took the time and energy to give me honest, constructive feedback. So if you loved it, tell me why you loved it. Tell me why it was easy. Tell me why, it was great auth solution and how long it took you and the things that you found were a breeze. And I had this problem and I found the answer and it was great. And then on the flip side of that, if it wasn't great for whatever reason, still please tell me. So if it was, I struggled to get this working in this language and never find a solution, so I had to give up. You are still going to be counted and still have the ability to win that $250. So this will go to the individual that gives me the most valuable feedback. And that's all I have. So I'm going to invite Jen back over. We're going to do a Q&A. Drop all your questions in the chat here. If it's something you want to DM me, totally can do that. Vanessa Burroughs in that Women Who Code Slack. Yeah, and we're here to answer your questions.
I think so far we don't have, we do have one question. So I did answer this up in the chat. So this is from Lynn, asking about the distinction between 1Password and Passage and wondering if they missed out on a marketing push. But I actually did answer this in the chat. I'm not sure if you could see it, but this is a different product than the 1Password offering. So even though we are under the umbrella of 1Password, we're like the Stripe of passwordless authentication. So think of like dropping us in, we handle all the hard stuff for you, and kind of like that's our entire MO behind the scenes.
Yeah, and like where those would meet to give you a bigger picture is, so you could see where I gave the demo. So let's say that was the login for my hackathon project, was that demo login. I would actually save my passkey for that website into 1Password. So whereas 1Password holds how I log into everything, Passage gives you the ability to allow your users to log in with passkeys, and you drop that onto what you're building, if that makes sense. So 1Password more for me as the consumer using my passwords, and then Passage for those building products, if that makes sense.
Cool. Next question. It's about the hackathon prizes. So also from Lynn, thank you. Best implementation is a little vague. Can you clarify?
Yeah, so we're really just looking, and I'm with you. Like if everyone just did the simple auth, then yeah, we'll have to comb through and kind of see. But we're looking to see and give extra points for, did you go in there and did you use an SDK? Are you showing some of your user information and how you are managing your users using Passage? Are you showing that a little differently? Have you built out maybe this really cool profile in which you're grabbing information from? So it's really, we're just looking to see kind of who pushes the boundaries of how they're using some of the things available within Passage in their wider social good project.
Awesome. Next question. After the user logs in, does the backend receive data so we can store their data in our own database, or is it all kept in Passage?
Yeah, so in terms of the user data, so we take the metadata. We don't actually store your user metadata. That is in that user management slide that I showed. So you would be able to see, your user's name and things like that. Now, with that being said, you can definitely, if for whatever reason, like you really needed it, and you wanted to store some of your user data, you would not be able to get a hold of any of their passkeys. That's that secure layer there. But you definitely could utilize the SDK to create users and then pull some of that information out. And then you do whatever you would like with it in your own database. But that is just that user metadata. You never can get a hold of the user passkeys.
Awesome. Thank you, Vanessa. Next one from Pradnya. Thank you. Does 1Password allow us to store more customized info about the user and that other than just the user info?
Yeah, definitely. So you have what we call user metadata. So in that, other than just the user info, making sure I'm answering this question correctly, more customizing. So you can clarify if you want to, like I said, have a first name, a last name, an address. You can go ahead and add those to that form and capture them and save that metadata into Passage as well. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, give me a follow-up question. I'll make sure to clarify further.
Awesome. Thank you. Next question from Elizabeth. Thanks. I'm a little confused on what a passkey is. I thought it was the code that is emailed. Is that not a passkey?
Great question, because I think I was caught up on this in the beginning before. So that code that is emailed to you or text to you, that is actually referred to as a one-time code. So that is more that second step in the multi-factor authentication. Passkeys, they exist just as a key value pair within your computer. So it's hard, it's hard to imagine, but it's your computer holds part of this key value pair, and then the actual system itself holds part of this key value pair, and they have to link up and they have to okay. And your computer secures part of your key value pair through biometrics. So that fingerprint, the sometimes your face, depending on how you have it set up. But that code that comes to you, no, that is considered a one-time code. Let me know if that clarifies.
Cool. Next question, a follow-up from Calico. Would we have access to, for example, a unique user ID? This is the follow-up from asking about what we are storing in our backend.
Yes, you do have access to unique user ID, right? Like you would definitely need those to go through and assign your user and move them around to view things. So you do have access to that. Yeah, that would be dig into some of the SDKs that's returned in a lot of your create or edit a user. You'll receive back their user ID.
All right, next question is about implementing Passage. I have been having technical troubles. I tried to hide my app ID in .env, but it isn't working when I don't directly pass in. Is there anywhere I can go to look for more help with this?
Jesse, drop me a line on Slack. I can help you out a bit there, and we can look and see. My answer for this would just kind of depend on like what you're using and where you're at there. So just reach out to me, Vanessa Burroughs, on the Women Who Code Slack.
All right. From Leah, is there any way to get data from form field in a passage element and pass it to a database? We want to add fields for use in our app, such as user location, but store it in our database.
Yeah, since this seems to be a recurring question, I will actually let me copy this question. I will actually take this and answer in the wider hackathon channel, just because it's a question that I think has popped up a bit now. So Leah, if that's okay with you, I will follow up so that more people can kind of see that answer and use it throughout the whole hackathon on Slack.
Yeah, really good questions.
Cool. Anyone else? If not, like I said, I will be on Slack. Keep in mind, I am in Austin, Texas, so definitely within those working hours. You probably won't grab me super late, but definitely reach out there. Feel free to send me a direct message, or if you feel like it's a wider question that a lot of people can benefit from, ask in the wider hackathon channels as well.
Got one more question in here from Lynn, asking again because the reply feature kind of hides my reply. If I'm understanding, then will 1Password move away from its master password implementation and move to a passkey implementation, or is that top secret info?
Yeah. Now you said top secret info. Now you have me worried. I'll say something that I'm not supposed to say. But it is. Jen, do you remember where the state of this is
I mean,
in terms of password?
being on the Passage team, I would say we're a bit biased, and we would love to see like a totally passwordless future, and we're all in on passkeys and what that looks like. But I can't really speak to the bigger business decisions at 1Password. I think right now in the climate of authentication, it sounds like some people are still reluctant. Some people being users are still reluctant to just wholesale move on to passkeys. I think that will probably change in the future if like the information about passkeys gets out there and people really start to trust what a passkey actually is, and understanding it is more secure than a password. I can't speak to what the wider strategy that 1Password is going to use for theirs.
Yeah,
I think that
my
probably.
my unofficial guess is because 1Password has been really has done really well. Like I showed you, like the different products as we've moved along auth and the things that they've answered and support that they've given. I truly believe that, and like I said, this is just Vanessa's hot takes. I believe that it will be a long, long time, if ever, until we get to the place where it's like passkeys and passkeys only. Because there is so many different things that are needed and actually in order to actually support this. So I feel like for a long time we will exist in this state of both. That's just, like I said, my hot takes.
Yeah. I've got just one more question. Is this free for the hackathon? And if we want to use it for our personal project in the future, Terry's gone in and answered from their site free up to 5,000 monthly active users or MAUs. Do we have anything specific for the hackathon?
We do not have anything specific for the hackathon, but Terry's got it. If you hit the 1,000 users, it's free up until that point, and then you have to start looking kind of at some of our
I would
pricing
say if you
breakdowns
can
there.
hit past 5,000 monthly active users for this hackathon, you probably win. So go for it. Try and get to that paid tier.
You win, you should definitely take
Yeah, you
that
should
product and you should
productionize that.
launch it. Yes, quickly. All right.
Give it maybe a couple more minutes in case any more questions trickle in.
Cat says incentive.
As we're waiting, and before I close everything, I wanted to just, well, thank you both, but I did have a question. Vanessa, you kind of mentioned that you didn't know a lot of the things before joining Passage. What was that like learning like, and any tips you have for people if they're working with this for the first time?
Yeah. That learning is still ongoing, if I'm going to be honest with you. That learning does not stop. And we have a couple of industry standards, like industry leaders, individuals that we've brought in to help us. Nick Steele, he's awesome, who have actually created it. And I still am in conversations with him, like trying to understand. But there are a lot of good things that have come out. Nick Steele, if you look him up, I will actually. He is one of the leaders. They have a number of, if you look him up, he pops up immediately. They have a number of YouTube videos. They have a number of different papers that they have put out. Watching some of those, because reading those papers, not gonna lie, started dozing off. So watch some videos. He does a really good job of a technical dive, like a technical deep dive, and does a lot of different conferences and things like that. I watch different conference talks. That's the big reason, like our co-founder Anna isn't here with us today. She would have wanted to join, but she's at Authenticate all week. Watching a lot of those, reading stuff from WebAuthn's website, 1Password themselves, they have a couple different answers for passkeys, what they are, how they work. I'm trying to just consume as much of that. But yeah, it's still deep dives that I'm trying to do constantly.
On that note, thank you so much to both of you. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you to Passage and 1Password for sponsoring and supporting our hackathon. Do you want to, Vanessa, just one more time how people can find you and reminding of your work hours? I think I enjoyed that boundary, and I also enjoyed your hot takes. So,
just because I would love to say like I'll be on here all night, but I know I'm gonna go to sleep. It's not gonna happen. I'm dropping in this chat. I'll do Slack. I'll do email for those of us who can't and won't do Slack. Yeah, this is how you can reach me. And I'm typically, if we're going to be honest, like you can probably find me between 8 to 6, and I am on Central Time in Austin.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you both, Vanessa and Jennifer. Anything to add, Jennifer, before we close out?
just want to say thank you for joining this morning, hearing us out on Passkeys, and we're really excited to see what you're going to build.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
exciting.
and thank you again to Women Who Code. Like personally, when I started my journey years ago, like I looked for groups like Women Who Code, Girl Develop It, things like that to like give me those safe spaces to be in and sometimes honestly like feel dumb in, right? So like I would go to those events, ask all my questions and really feel like, okay, I can get this out in a place that's like very relaxed. I don't feel like, tech bro hovering or anything like that. So big thank you to you guys. We're happy that we can support.
Thank you both, and thanks for starting your morning with us. And thank you to all the participants, and good luck. I'm excited. I'm also quite excited to see the projects come in and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we're going to leave the stage, but you know how to find Vanessa if you need support. So thank you so much.